The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched wider than any stadium on Earth. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds sat in curved rows that rose toward a ceiling painted with stars. Ambassador Park Ji-woo stood at the speaker's platform, his dark suit simple compared to the bright robes and armor of other delegates. His hair had turned gray at the temples, but his eyes remained sharp and clear. The speaker, a tall being covered in blue scales, raised all four arms for silence. "We celebrate today 500 years of peace," the speaker announced. 5 centuries without major war. This is the longest peace our galaxy has ever known." Cheers erupted from the assembled delegates. Beings clapped, chirped, hummed, and made sounds of joy in 100 different ways. Ji-woo clapped politely, his face calm and pleasant. Inside his chest, his heart beat steady and cold. "On this great day," the speaker continued, "we welcome a petition from the Krell Dominion. They seek formal alliance and protection under council law." Ji-woo watched as the Krell delegates entered. There were 5 of them, walking on 6 legs each, their armored bodies clicking against the polished floor. Their leader, who called himself Warlord Kresh, had won his position by crushing 3 rival claimants. The Krell believed in strength above all else, but they were not strong anymore. Ji-woo knew this. Everyone knew this. The Krell Dominion had broken into pieces over the last 2 centuries. Rebellions burned across their former empire. Their economy had collapsed. Their military, once feared across a dozen sectors, could barely maintain order on their own core worlds. Now they came begging for help. They came to the Council seeking protection under laws they had once ignored, and they came to humanity specifically, hoping for aid. Ji-woo found this deeply interesting. "The Krell Dominion wishes to address this council," the speaker said. "Warlord Kresh, you may speak." Kresh moved to the platform. His translator box made his clicking speech into words everyone could understand. "We come in peace," he said. "We seek friendship with all council members, especially our neighbors, the humans. We have lived near each other for nearly 1,000 years. It is time we became true allies." Many delegates nodded. The idea seemed reasonable. Humans and Krell had shared borders for centuries without conflict. The humans had been quiet, cooperative neighbors. They traded fairly, settled disputes through diplomatic channels, and never caused trouble. Everyone liked the humans. Everyone thought they knew the humans. Ji-woo rose when the speaker called on him. He walked to the platform slowly, giving himself time to choose his words. He had been practicing this moment his entire life. His father had practiced it before him, his grandmother before that. Every human diplomat for 800 years had prepared for this moment. "The Krell Dominion honors us with their request," Ji-woo said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. "Humanity values peace above all things. We understand the importance of stability in these difficult times." Kresh's mandibles clicked in what might have been pleasure. "However," Ji-woo continued, "such a significant alliance requires careful consideration. We must consult with our government, examine all historical contexts, and ensure we make the right choice for both our peoples." "Historical contexts?" Kresh asked. "We have no bad history between us." Ji-woo smiled. It was a small smile, polite and diplomatic. "Of course, I simply mean we must review everything carefully. Surely you understand. We will provide our answer soon." The council session ended an hour later. Ji-woo gathered his data tablets and prepared to leave. Several other ambassadors approached him with friendly words. They told him how wise the humans were, how carefully they thought about things. They said humanity would be good for the Krell, would help them find peace and stability. Ji-woo thanked them all graciously. He returned to the human embassy alone. His staff had gone home for the day. He locked his office door and sat at his desk, then activated his private terminal, the one that connected directly to Earth through quantum channels that could not be intercepted. He opened the old files. the ones every human diplomat studied, the ones taught in every school on every human world, the files about the burning. 847 years ago, the Krell Dominion had been at the height of its power. They controlled 70 star systems and commanded fleets that made other species tremble. They were expanding aggressively, claiming new worlds, crushing anyone who resisted. Earth had been new to galactic politics then. Humanity had just developed faster than light travel. They had established colonies on 3 worlds beyond their home system. They were excited, hopeful, ready to join the community of spacefaring civilizations. The Krell saw them as weak. On a day that humans now called the Burning, Krell warships appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. They did not send messages. They did not make demands. They simply opened fire. The attack focused on Asia. Shanghai, Delhi, Seoul, Tokyo, Manila, Bangkok, Beijing, and 40 other major cities were hit with orbital bombardment. The weapons were designed to maximize casualties. Fires spread faster than people could run. Buildings collapsed into dust. The heat was so intense that lakes boiled away. 4,300,000,000 humans died in 6 hours. The Krell then broadcast a simple message to the survivors. You will not expand beyond your current 3 colonies. If you try, we will finish what we started. Then they left. Jiwoo looked at the images in the files. He had seen them thousands of times, but they still made his hands shake. Entire cities reduced to blackened craters, rivers choked with bodies, children burned to shadows on walls. His own family line traced back to Seoul. His ancestors 800 years ago had lived there. They had died there. Every human alive today carried this wound in their genetic memory. Every human knew the names of the dead. Every human world had memorials carved with 4.3 billion names. The galaxy thought humans had moved on. They had not. They had simply been very, very patient. After the burning, humanity made a choice. They did not strike back immediately. They knew they were too weak. The Krell would only finish the job if humanity retaliated with their limited strength. So humanity became quiet. They became cooperative. They joined the Galactic Council and were model citizens. They traded, they negotiated, they made friends with other species. They seemed to forget about the burning. But humans never forget. While being friendly council members, humanity had been working. They established colonies in hidden systems far from known space. They built shipyards in dark nebulae where sensors could not reach. They trained soldiers in secret bases. They studied the Krell obsessively, learning everything about their culture, their technology, their psychology. Humanity built a fleet designed for one purpose: to destroy the Krell military completely while harming no civilians. For 800 years, humanity had been preparing. And now the Krell came asking for help. Jiwoo closed the files and opened a new message window. He typed carefully, encoding his words in humanity's most secure cipher. To Earth Central Command. From Ambassador Park Jiwoo. Subject: The enemy offers themselves. The Krell Dominion has formally requested alliance with humanity. They are weak, divided, and desperate. They believe we have forgotten the burning. They believe we are simple, peaceful traders who will help them restore their empire. They have given us the perfect opportunity. Under Council law, alliance permits free movement of personnel, joint military operations, and deep economic integration. They are inviting us into their worlds, their command structures, their hearts. I have delayed our response to allow time for preparation. The Council expects humanity to be slow and careful in all decisions. This gives us weeks, possibly months. All pieces are in position. The hidden fleet awaits orders. Our operatives stand ready. Intelligence networks report complete mapping of Krell command structures. 847 years have passed since the burning. The galaxy believes this is ancient history. They do not understand that for humanity, it was yesterday. We have carried 4.3 billion names across the centuries. We have never stopped mourning. We have never stopped remembering, and we have never stopped preparing. My recommendation, accept the Krell Alliance. Let them think we are friends. Let them relax their guard completely, and then show them that humanity never forgets a wound. Request permission to proceed with Operation Reckoning. Jiwoo read the message 3 times, checking every word. Then he sent it. The response would take 6 hours to arrive from Earth. He stood and walked to his office window. The embassy overlooked the Council World's capital city. Lights glowed from 1,000 different species buildings. Ships moved through the sky in orderly patterns. Everything looked peaceful. The galaxy had enjoyed 500 years of peace. They had grown comfortable. They had forgotten that peace is not the absence of conflict, but only the pause between it. They had forgotten that some wounds do not heal. They only wait. Jiwoo thought about his ancestors in Seoul. He thought about the billions of names carved in memorial stone. He thought about children who never grew up, artists who never created, lovers who never met. He thought about 800 years of human patience. Soon, the galaxy would learn something important about humanity. They would learn that humans can wait longer than empires can stand, that human memory outlasts dynasties, that when you wound humanity, you had better kill them all, because those who survive will remember forever. The Krell had failed to kill them all. Now they would learn what that failure cost. 6 hours later, Jiwoo's terminal chimed. The message from Earth was brief. Ambassador Park Jiwoo, your recommendation is approved. You are authorized to accept Krell Alliance. Proceed with Operation Reckoning. All assets are activated. The Hidden Fleet launches in 72 hours. The wait is over. Let justice finally arrive. Jiwoo stood in his dark office and allowed himself a moment of raw emotion. His eyes grew wet. His hands trembled. 847 years of waiting. 847 years of preparation. 847 years of carrying the dead with them. Now, finally, the dead would have their answer. He composed himself and prepared his response to the Krell. He would write that humanity was honored to accept their alliance, that humans looked forward to deep cooperation and friendship, that they wanted nothing more than peace between their peoples. Every word would be true in its way. They would have deep cooperation. They would work together closely, right up until the moment humanity showed the Krell the price of genocide. Jiwoo began typing, his face calm once more, his diplomatic mask perfectly in place. The galaxy thought it knew humans. They were about to learn they had been wrong for 800 years. Captain Lee Sang-mi stood on the bridge of the Remembrance, watching the stars that nobody else knew existed. The ship floated in a system that appeared on no galactic maps. Around her, 300 other warships waited in the darkness. This was the Hidden Fleet, humanity's secret, built over 8 centuries in places the galaxy never looked. Sang-mi was 42 years old. She had been training for this moment since she was 6. Her parents had trained before her grandparents before them. Every generation of her family for 800 years had one purpose: prepare for the day humanity would answer the burning. "Status report," she said. Her first officer, Commander Chen Tai-hyun, pulled up displays. "All ships report ready. Weapons at full capacity, drives charged, crews at stations. We can jump on your order, Captain." Sang-mi nodded slowly. She looked at the tactical display showing 300 ships. Each one had been built in secret. Each one carried weapons the galaxy had never seen. Humanity had not just been building ships. They had been developing technology. For 800 years, while being friendly traders and diplomats, humanity's best scientists had been working. They told the galaxy they had no interest in military advancement. They shared civilian technology freely. They seemed peaceful. All lies. Peaceful nations do not build secret fleets. They do not develop weapons in hidden laboratories. They do not train every generation for war. But humanity was not preparing for conquest. They were preparing for justice. "How many Krell worlds are we targeting?" Sangmi asked, though she already knew. 47 major installations across 23 systems, Chen answered. Military bases, command centers, government buildings, no civilian targets. We have triple-checked every coordinate. This was important. Humanity did not make war on civilians. The Krell had killed 4.3 billion civilians on Earth. Humanity would not become like them. They would destroy the Krell's ability to make war, dismantle their government, and bring their leaders to justice. But Krell families, children, ordinary people trying to live their lives would not be harmed. This was the difference between justice and revenge. Sangmi had spent 20 years studying that difference. Every human officer had. They took courses in military ethics, historical analysis of war crimes, and the philosophy of proportional response. They had all read the writings of the survivors of the burning, the ones who lived through the fires and chose to build rather than hate. Those survivors had established one principle. The Krell leadership must answer for their crimes, but Krell people were not guilty for being born Krell. "Time until Operation Reckoning begins?" Sangmi asked. "Ambassador Park signals he will finalize the alliance in 6 months, Chen said. "That gives us time for final positioning. All infiltration teams report successful placement. We have assets in every major Krell command structure." Sangmi allowed herself a small smile. The infiltration had been brilliant. Over the last 50 years, humanity had quietly sent agents into Krell space. They posed as traders, teachers, technicians. They married Krell citizens. They raised children who were half human, half Krell. They became trusted members of Krell society. And they waited. Now those agents were everywhere. In military headquarters, in government offices, in communications networks. When the signal came, they would disable Krell command capability in seconds. The Krell would wake up to find their entire military infrastructure offline, their leadership unable to give orders, and human warships surrounding their worlds. It would be the most perfectly executed military operation in galactic history. Sangmi touched a control on her chair. A hologram appeared, showing Earth. Specifically, it showed the memorial fields. Every human world had memorial fields. On Earth alone, there were 47 of them, one for each city destroyed in the burning. The fields contained stones carved with names, all 4.3 billion names. The stones covered thousands of square kilometers. Human children took field trips to the memorial fields. They walked between the stones. They learned about the people who died, not just numbers, but people, artists and farmers, teachers and students, parents and children. The memorials included pictures, personal stories, dreams that were never fulfilled. Every human child learned these stories. Every human carried the names with them. This was why humanity never forgot. They made remembering a sacred duty. "Captain," Chen said quietly, "you should see this." He showed her a feed from one of the memorial fields. It was early morning on Earth. Thousands of people were there, standing between the stones. They were holding candles. They were not speaking. They were waiting. News had spread somehow. Humanity's intelligence network was too good for information to stay completely secret. People knew something was coming. They knew the wait might finally be over. So they went to the memorials to wait with the dead. Sangmi felt her throat tighten. She forced herself to remain calm. "Chen, how many people are at the memorials right now?" He checked. Reports from all human worlds indicate approximately 2 billion people at memorial sites. They started gathering 3 days ago, when rumors began. 2 billion people. Half of humanity standing vigil with the names of the dead. This was what the galaxy did not understand about humans. They thought humans had moved on. They thought 800 years was enough time to forget. But humans did not experience time like other species. They carried their history forward like a living thing. The burning was not ancient history to humans. It was the defining moment of their species. Every human alive knew they existed only because some ancestor had survived. They knew their entire civilization had nearly ended that day. And they knew it could happen again if they ever became weak enough to allow it. A message came through from Earth Central Command. Sang-Mi opened it on her private channel. To Captain Lee Sang-Mi, Commander of the Hidden Fleet. From Admiral Park Sun-hee, Earth Defense Forces. 6 months remain until Operation Reckoning begins. All elements are in position. Intelligence confirms Krell leadership is relaxing security, believing the alliance with humanity will stabilize their empire. They suspect nothing. You are authorized to begin final positioning of the fleet. Move assets into approach vectors for all target systems. Maintain stealth protocols. No Krell sensors must detect your presence. Our diplomatic team will finalize the alliance with appropriate ceremony. We will send advisors and aid to the Krell as promised. These people will help position our final assets. The Krell think they are manipulating us. They believe we are naive, peaceful people who will help them rebuild their military power. They plan to use our resources to restore their empire. They do not realize we are using them. In 6 months, we will spring the trap. The Krell Dominion will cease to exist as a military power. Their leadership will face justice for crimes committed 847 years ago. The galaxy will watch. They will see what happens when you wound humanity and think they have forgotten. Proceed with final preparations. The dead have waited long enough. Sang-Mi read the message twice, then sent her acknowledgement. She stood and addressed her bridge crew. All hands, attention. We have received final authorization for Operation Reckoning. In 6 months, this fleet will jump to Krell space and begin justice operations. We have trained our entire lives for this. Our parents trained before us. Our grandparents before them. 847 years of preparation ends in 6 months. The bridge crew sat perfectly still, absorbing her words. Remember why we do this, Sang-Mi continued. We are not conquerors. We are not seeking empire. We are the instruments of justice for 4.3 billion people who never got to live their lives. We carry their names with us. We speak for those who cannot speak. She paused, thinking about the memorials, the stones, the billions of names. The Krell leadership believes they killed enough humans to make the survivors afraid. They were wrong. They made survivors who would never stop remembering. They created a species that would wait centuries for justice if necessary. Sang-Mi touched the control to display the tactical map. Begin final positioning. All ships will move to jump coordinates over the next month. Maintain absolute stealth. The Krell must not know we exist until the moment we arrive. Yes, Captain, Chen said. The bridge crew turned to their stations, beginning the complex process of moving 300 warships into position. Sang-Mi returned to her quarters after her shift. On her wall hung a copy of a memorial stone. It showed the name Kim Min-jun, age 7. He had lived in Seoul. He had wanted to be an artist. He had died in the burning, along with his parents, his sister, and his grandparents. Sang-Mi had chosen this name when she joined the fleet. Every human officer chose one name from the memorials to carry with them, one person to represent all the dead, one life cut short that they would speak for. We're coming, she said quietly to the name. 800 years late, but we're coming. The people who killed you will answer for it, I promise you. She knew the promise was strange. Kim Min-jun had been dead for 8 centuries. But to humanity, he was still real. His story was still known. His dreams still mattered. This was the power of human memory. The dead stayed alive in the minds of the living. As long as someone remembered them, they had not truly vanished, and humanity remembered everything. Across Krell space, human agents received their final instructions. They were teachers in Krell schools, workers in Krell factories, technicians in Krell military bases. They had lived among the Krell for years, some for decades. They had Krell friends. Some had Krell spouses and children. None of them would harm civilians. That was not their mission. Their mission was to disable command infrastructure at exactly the right moment, to make sure when the hidden fleet arrived, Krell military forces could not organize, could not fight back, could not cause unnecessary death. This would be a clean operation, surgical, precise. The Krell leadership would be captured alive to stand trial. Their military would be dismantled, their government would be dissolved. But the Krell people would be left to build a new future, free from the militaristic culture that had led to genocide. Humanity was not destroying the Krell. They were destroying the Krell Dominion. There was a difference. On Earth, Ambassador Park Ji-woo prepared his final diplomatic messages. In 6 months, he would stand before the Galactic Council and explain what humanity had done. He would show evidence of the burning. He would present the legal case for action. He would demonstrate that humanity had acted within bounds of proportional justice. Some species would understand. Others would be horrified. All would be afraid. And that was acceptable. Humanity did not need to be loved. They needed to be respected. They needed the galaxy to understand that humans remember, humans wait, and humans keep their promises to the dead. 6 months remained. The hidden fleet moved through darkness, approaching attack positions. Agents in Krell space prepared their final moves. Diplomats perfected their legal arguments. And on every human world, people stood at memorials, holding candles, waiting for the moment when justice would finally arrive. 847 years of patience was almost over. The day began normally on Krell Prime, the home world of the Krell Dominion. The 3 suns rose over cities where millions of Krell went about their daily routines. Workers traveled to factories. Students attended classes. Government officials prepared for another day of managing a declining empire. In his palace, Warlord Kresh met with his advisors. They were discussing the human alliance with satisfaction. "The humans have been very helpful," one advisor clicked. "Their economic aid has stabilized 3 of our colony worlds. Their technical advisors have improved our manufacturing efficiency by 30%. "They are weak and generous," another advisor said. "Perfect allies for our purposes. Once we rebuild our strength using their resources, we can expand again." Kresh made a sound of agreement. "The humans are useful. They think they are buying peace. They do not realize they are restoring our power. In 20 years, the Dominion will be strong again." None of them knew this was the last normal conversation they would ever have. On Earth, in a command center buried deep beneath the memorial fields, Admiral Park Sun-hee watched countdown timers reach 0. "All elements report ready," her operations officer said. Sun-hee took a deep breath. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived the burning as a child. She thought about the billions who did not survive. She thought about 800 years of waiting. "Commence Operation Reckoning," she said quietly. "Yes, Admiral. Sending activation signal now." The signal traveled through quantum channels that could not be intercepted. It reached agents across Krell space simultaneously. It reached the hidden fleet waiting in dark space at the edges of 47 systems. It reached diplomatic teams, intelligence operatives, and sleeper cells that had been positioned for decades. 800 years of preparation activated in a single instant. On Krell Prime, a human technical advisor named Song Min-jae worked in the Central Military Command building. He had been there for 3 years, helping the Krell upgrade their communication systems. They trusted him completely. When the signal reached his encrypted implant, he stopped his work. He walked calmly to a maintenance panel and entered a code sequence. The code had been built into the system during the upgrades. The Krell had never noticed. Every military communication system across Krell Prime went offline. At the same moment, 47 other human agents executed identical actions across 47 military installations. Within 60 seconds, the entire Krell military communication network was dead. In orbit above Krell Prime, Captain Lee Sang-mi stood on the bridge of the Remembrance as the hidden fleet completed its jump from dark space. "All ships report successful jump," Commander Chen said. "Fleet is in position around the planet. Weapons locked on military targets. Civilian areas are clear." Sang-mi looked at the tactical display. 300 human warships now surrounded Krell Prime. Smaller task forces had simultaneously appeared at every major Krell military installation in their territory. The Krell military tried to respond. Officers shouted orders. Soldiers ran to defensive positions. Ships tried to launch. Nothing worked. Communications were dead. Automated defense systems had been disabled. Ships found their launch systems offline. Every piece of military infrastructure that relied on computers was now under human control. The Krell had spent 6 months letting humans help them upgrade their technology. They never suspected those upgrades included backdoors that would give humans complete control. "Open a channel," Sang-mi ordered. "Broadcast to all Krell worlds, audio and visual." "Channel open, Captain." Sang-mi stood straight, her uniform perfect, her face calm. Behind her, the bridge of the Remembrance showed a crew working with quiet efficiency. This was the image the Krell would see. Humans as disciplined, prepared, unstoppable. "People of the Krell Dominion," she began, speaking through translators that would carry her words to every Krell world. "My name is Captain Lee Sang-mi of the Earth Defense Forces. The warships surrounding your worlds are the Hidden Fleet, built over 8 centuries for this single purpose." On Krell Prime, civilians looked up at the sky in confusion and fear. The 300 human ships were clearly visible, holding position above their cities. But the ships' weapons pointed only at military bases, government buildings, and defensive installations. 847 years ago, Sang-mi continued, your Dominion committed an act of genocide against humanity. Without warning or provocation, Krell warships appeared at Earth and destroyed 47 cities. 4,300,000,000 humans died in 6 hours. Your leaders then threatened to exterminate our entire species if we resisted. She paused, letting the words sink in. On many Krell worlds, younger citizens were hearing this history for their first time. Their government had never taught them about the burning. It was an embarrassing episode in Krell expansion, best forgotten. Humans had not forgotten. Your leadership believed we were too weak to resist, Sang-mi said. They were correct at the time. We did not have the strength to answer your genocide. So we made a different choice. We waited, we prepared, we remembered every name, every face, every life your Dominion destroyed. On the Remembrance's secondary screen, Sang-mi could see reactions from across Krell space. Some Krell looked confused, others frightened, some angry. A few seemed to be learning about the burning for the first time. For 800 years, humanity has carried the dead with us. We built memorials with all their names. We taught our children about them. We made remembering a sacred duty. And while we remembered, we prepared for this day. Sang-mi touched a control. The broadcast now showed images from the burning. Cities in flames, bodies in streets, rivers boiling from the heat. Children burned to shadows on walls. Many Krell looked away from the images. Some made sounds of distress. This was not the proud military victory their history books described. This was mass murder. Your Dominion's current leadership is not responsible for these crimes, Sang-mi continued. Most Krell alive today were not born when the burning occurred. We understand this. We are not here to punish innocent people. She let that statement stand alone for a moment. However, the leadership that authorized the burning must face justice. The military command structure that carried it out must be dismantled. The government that threatened to exterminate our species must be dissolved. This is not negotiable. On Krell Prime, Warlord Kresh watched the broadcast from his palace. He was surrounded by guards, but his communication systems were dead. He could not give orders. He could not organize resistance. He could only watch as his empire crumbled. All Krell military personnel are ordered to stand down, Sangmi said. Do not resist. Do not attempt to fight. If you resist, you will die. We have spent 800 years preparing for this moment. You cannot win. She was not bragging. She was stating facts. The Hidden Fleet had technology the Krell had never seen. Every human ship was more advanced than anything the Krell possessed, and every Krell military system was already under human control. Krell civilians will not be harmed, Sangmi continued. We are not like your old dominion. We do not make war on the innocent. Your homes, your families, your daily lives will continue unchanged. We are here to dismantle your military and government, not to conquer your people. On the tactical display, Sangmi could see Krell military forces attempting to organize resistance at several locations. Human forces responded with precise strikes that destroyed weapons emplacements and disabled military vehicles without harming nearby civilian areas. The Krell military quickly learned that resistance was suicide. One by one, bases surrendered. The Krell High Command is ordered to surrender for trial, Sangmi said. You will face a tribunal for crimes against humanity. You will be judged according to galactic law. If you surrender peacefully, you will be treated according to prisoner rights. If you resist, we will extract you by force. She closed the broadcast. Status of all operations? Chen pulled up reports from across Krell space. All primary targets secured. Military resistance collapsing. Civilian populations remaining calm. No unintended casualties reported. Ground forces landing at key government sites now. It was working perfectly. 800 years of planning was executing exactly as designed. On Krell Prime, human soldiers in powered armor moved through the palace. They encountered Kresh's personal guards and gave them one chance to surrender. The guards looked at the human armor, looked at their own outdated weapons, and put them down. Kresh himself stood in his throne room, surrounded by his remaining advisors. When the humans entered, he made one last attempt at defiance. You cannot do this, he clicked. The Galactic Council will not allow it. You are violating council law. The human commander removed his helmet. It was Ambassador Park Jiwoo, who had left the council world the moment Operation Reckoning began. Council law permits proportional response to acts of genocide, Jiwoo said calmly. Council law requires trials for war criminals. Council law protects civilians but not military leadership that commits crimes against sentient species. We are operating within every legal boundary. The burning was 800 years ago, Kresh shouted. It is ancient history. Not to us, Jiwoo said quietly. To humanity, it was yesterday. We remember every name. We carry them all with us. Time does not erase genocide, Warlord. It only tests whether the victims are strong enough to seek justice eventually. He gestured to his soldiers. Warlord Kresh, you are under arrest for conspiracy to restore a military regime responsible for genocide. You will be transported to Earth to stand trial. Kresh looked around desperately, but there was nowhere to run. His communications were dead. His military was surrendering across every world. His entire government was being systematically dismantled by humans who had spent 8 centuries preparing for this exact moment. He had thought humans were weak, forgiving, useful. He had been wrong about everything. Across Krell space, the remaining High Command members surrendered within hours. Some tried to flee. Human ships caught them easily. A few tried to fight. They died quickly. Most surrendered quietly, realizing they had no chance. At the Galactic Council, emergency sessions erupted. Ambassadors from hundreds of species watched in shock as humans took apart the Krell Dominion in a single day. Some demanded intervention. Others argued that the Krell had committed genocide and deserved justice. Still others simply watched in silent fear. A species they thought they understood had revealed its true nature. Humans were not weak. They were not forgiving. They had been pretending for 8 centuries while building power in secret. What else might they have been preparing? On Earth, Admiral Sun He watched reports flow in. All objectives achieved. All key leadership captured. All military installations secured. 0 civilian casualties. It was the most perfectly executed military operation in history. She opened a channel to Captain Sang Mi. "Captain, Operation Reckoning is complete. All phases successful. You may begin Phase 2. "Understood, Admiral. Beginning occupation and reconstruction operations now." Phase 2 was rebuilding. Human forces would now secure Krell worlds, dismantle weapons, dissolve the central government, but also ensure civilian populations had food, medicine, and safety. Humanity would replace Krell military rule with local civilian governments. The Krell people would have freedom to build a new future, but they would never threaten another species again. Sun He stood and walked to the window of her command center. Above her, she could see the memorial fields. Thousands of people still stood there, holding candles. She activated the public address system. "People of Earth, people of all human worlds. 847 years ago, our species nearly died. 4,300,000,000 of our people were murdered. The galaxy thought we would forget. They were wrong. Today, Operation Reckoning is complete. The Krell Dominion no longer exists as a military power. Their leadership will face justice for their crimes, and the dead finally have their answer." Her voice cracked slightly. "We never forgot them. We never will." Across Earth and every human world, people at the memorials began to sing. It was an old song, created after the burning, a song about remembering, about carrying the dead forward, about keeping promises across centuries. The galaxy had learned something today. They had learned that humanity never forgets a wound. The tribunal chamber was built specifically for this purpose. It stood in Geneva, where humans had once tried war criminals from their own species. The room was large enough to hold thousands of observers, with screens displaying the proceedings to billions more across the galaxy. Ambassador Park Ji-woo stood as chief prosecutor. He was 70 years old now, gray-haired and tired, but his voice remained strong. "This tribunal convenes to judge crimes committed 847 years ago," he began. "Some will say this is too long. Some will say we should forgive and move forward. I say that time does not erase genocide. Justice delayed is not justice denied. It is simply justice that had to wait." In the defendants section sat 15 Krell, not the ones who had ordered the burning. Those individuals were long dead. These were the high command members who had, until 3 months ago, led the Krell Dominion. They had not personally committed genocide, but they had worked to restore and maintain the power structure that had. Warlord Kresh sat among them, his 6 legs bound, his mandibles clamped with a device that let him speak but not attack. He looked smaller than he had in his palace. Power had made him seem large. Without it, he was just another being facing consequences. "The charges are conspiracy to restore a genocidal regime, crimes against peace, and attempted reconstruction of military capability with intent to threaten other species," Ji-woo continued. The Krell High Command knew the history of the burning. They knew their government was built on the foundation of mass murder, yet they worked to restore that government's power. A young Krell in the observers section stood up. "The burning happened before we were born. How can we be guilty of something our ancestors did?" Ji-woo turned to face the speaker. His expression was not angry, but sad. "You are not guilty of the burning," he said quietly. "Your ancestors did that, but your leadership chose to honor that legacy. They chose to maintain a system that celebrated military expansion through terror. They chose to teach that the burning was a legitimate military operation rather than genocide. That choice was made by living people who can be held responsible. He gestured to the defendants. These 15 individuals worked to rebuild the military power that once threatened to exterminate humanity. They sought alliance with us not for peace, but to use our resources for their restoration. They planned to become strong enough to expand again. This is not ancient history. This is ongoing conspiracy. The young Krell sat down slowly, looking troubled. On the screens, footage played from the burning. Not just death and destruction, but the before. People going to work, children walking to school, artists creating, scientists discovering, lovers meeting. All the normal moments of 4.3 billion lives, right before they ended. Then the Krell warships appeared. The fire began. Many in the chamber looked away. Some Krell observers made sounds of distress. This was not heroic military action. This was slaughter. 4,300,000,000 individuals, Jiwoo said, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. Each one was unique. Each one had dreams, fears, loves, hopes. Each one had family who mourned them. Each one left an empty space in the universe that can never be filled. He pulled up records on the screens. Let me tell you about just one. Her name was Park Min-seo. She was 9 years old. She lived in Seoul with her parents and baby brother. She wanted to be a teacher. On the day of the burning, she was at school. The fire came so fast, she never made it outside. We found her body protecting 2 younger children, trying to shield them with her own small body. She failed. They all died together. Jiwoo's voice remained steady, but his eyes were wet. Park Min-seo was my ancestor, 14 generations removed. I carry her name. I speak for her. She never got to be a teacher, never grew up, never had children of her own. Her baby brother died the same day. Her entire family line ended that morning. Except for one cousin who survived, I would not exist to stand here. He looked directly at Kresh. Can you tell me when I should stop seeking justice for Park Min-seo? How many years must pass? 1,000? 10,000? When does genocide become acceptable to ignore? Kresh said nothing. The defense may present their case, the judge announced. She was a neutral alien species, selected by the Galactic Council to ensure fairness. The Krell defense attorney stood. He was human, actually, appointed to ensure the defendants received proper legal representation. This had surprised many people, but Jiwoo had insisted. Justice meant fair trials, even for the guilty. Your Honor, my clients did not commit the burning, the attorney said. They were not alive when it happened. They inherited a government, yes, but they did not create its history. Is it fair to punish beings for the sins of their ancestors? That question is why we are here, Jiwoo replied. If they had acknowledged the crimes, dismantled the military structure, and built a peaceful government, we would not be having this trial. But they did the opposite. They celebrated the Dominion's past. They worked to restore its power. They planned to use that power the same way their predecessors did. He presented evidence. Messages between High Command members discussing their plans, references to humanity as useful weaklings, plans to rebuild military capability and then expand into new territories. One message explicitly stated, once we are strong again, we will remind the galaxy why they feared us. The evidence was damning. These were not innocent descendants. They were active participants in attempting to restore a genocidal empire. Over the next 3 weeks, the tribunal heard testimony from hundreds of witnesses. Survivors of the burning, now impossibly old, their memories preserved in recording technology. Historians who documented the Dominion's expansion methods. Intelligence officers who had infiltrated Krell space and seen the preparations for renewed military aggression. And they heard from Krell citizens themselves. A young Krell named Vexal took the stand. He was a teacher on one of the colony worlds. He spoke through a translator, his voice quiet. "I did not know the true history of the burning until humans came," he said. "Our government taught us it was a defensive action. They said humans were expanding aggressively, threatening Krell space. They said we struck first, to protect ourselves." He paused, his mandibles clicking in distress. This was a lie. I learned the truth from human teachers after the occupation. They showed us the evidence, the dates, the communications. Earth had not threatened anyone. The Krell simply saw a weak species and destroyed their cities to intimidate them. "How does this make you feel?" Jiwoo asked gently. "Ashamed," Vexal said. "My entire life I took pride in the Dominion. I taught students about our glorious history. I never questioned the official story. Now I know my government was built on genocide and maintained through propaganda. I do not know who I am anymore." This testimony repeated across many Krell witnesses. The younger generation was learning their history had been lies. Their pride had been based on mass murder. Their leaders had deliberately kept them ignorant. The trial was not just judging 15 individuals, it was forcing an entire species to confront their past. On Earth, at the memorial fields, people watched the proceedings on giant screens. Some came every day, sitting between the memorial stones, witnessing justice unfold. An old woman named Kim Soo-jin sat before a stone that read, "Kim Tae-hyun, age 42, father, teacher." He had been her grandfather's brother. She had heard stories about him her whole life, how he loved teaching literature, how he died trying to get his students to safety. "They are finally answering for it," she whispered to the stone. "After all this time, they are answering." Around her, thousands of others spoke quietly to their chosen names. The dead could not hear them, but the living needed to speak. They needed to honor the weight, to acknowledge that 847 years was a long time to carry grief, but they had done it. They had kept their promise. In the tribunal chamber, the judge called for final statements. Warlord Kresh stood. His lawyer had advised him to show remorse, to apologize, to seek mercy. But Kresh was a proud being. He had led the Dominion. He would not beg. "The burning was before my time," he said. "But I do not apologize for the Dominion's strength. The galaxy respects power. Species survive by being strong. Humanity learned this lesson. Look what they did to us. They spent 8 centuries planning revenge. They built secret fleets. They infiltrated our worlds. They took everything from us. Who is the monster now?" The chamber erupted. Human observers shouted in anger. Some Krell clicked approval. Others clicked disagreement. The judge called for order. Jiwoo stood slowly. "Warlord Kresh has revealed exactly why this tribunal was necessary. He sees no difference between genocide and justice. He believes strength justifies any action. He would do it all again if he could." He turned to face the entire chamber. "This is why we dismantled the Dominion. Not for revenge, not for conquest, but because the philosophy that created the burning was still alive in its leadership. They learned nothing from their crimes. They felt no guilt. They planned only to become strong enough to commit more crimes. "Humanity took everything from us," Kresh shouted. "You destroyed our government, our military, our power." "We took your ability to harm others," Jiwoo corrected. "Your people still have homes. Your children still go to school. Your families are intact. We took only the weapons and the government that planned to use them. How is this equivalent to killing 4.3 billion civilians?" Kresh had no answer. The tribunal deliberated for a week. When they returned, the chamber was packed beyond capacity. Every human world stopped to watch. Many Krell worlds watched too, divided between those who saw their leaders as heroes and those who now saw them as criminals. The judge spoke clearly. "The tribunal finds the defendants guilty of conspiracy to restore a genocidal regime and crimes against peace. While they did not personally commit the burning, They worked deliberately to restore the power structure that did. They planned to use that power to threaten other species, including humanity. She paused. The sentence is life imprisonment. The defendants will be held in secure facilities where they will live out their natural lives. They will not be executed. They will not be tortured. They will simply be removed from power permanently. It was a measured sentence. Not excessive, not cruel, simply permanent. Kresh slumped in his seat. Life imprisonment for a Krell meant 60 to 80 years. He would die in a human prison, powerless and forgotten. Some humans in the chamber shouted that it was not enough. Some Krell shouted it was too much. Most people simply sat quietly, absorbing the moment. Justice had arrived, 847 years late, but it had arrived. After the verdict, Jiwoo stood outside the tribunal chamber. Reporters from hundreds of species surrounded him. Ambassador Park, some species fear humanity now. They say you are dangerous, that you hold grudges too long. What do you say to them? Jiwoo considered carefully. We are not dangerous to species that respect life. We are dangerous only to those who commit genocide and think they can escape consequences. If that makes us dangerous, then yes, we are dangerous. We hope the galaxy will choose to see this as a good thing. How long will humanity occupy Krell worlds? Until we are confident new governments are stable and committed to peace. We estimate 20 years. Then Krell worlds will be independent again, free to govern themselves. But they will not be permitted military capability beyond basic defense. This restriction is permanent. Is this not conquest? Conquest takes resources for the conqueror's benefit. We are spending enormous resources rebuilding Krell infrastructure. We gain nothing material from this. We did this because it needed to be done. Jiwoo's expression softened slightly. We did this so we could finally rest. So the dead could finally rest. 847 years is a long time to wait for justice. He looked at the camera directly. To any species watching this, the galaxy is a better place when crimes have consequences, when genocides cannot be forgotten or ignored, when time does not erase responsibility. Humanity has proven we remember everything, and we never stop seeking justice. Let that be a lesson to everyone. 10 years after Operation Reckoning, the galaxy had changed. The Krell Dominion no longer existed. In its place were 12 independent Krell worlds, each with its own civilian government. They traded with their neighbors. They educated their children. They built art and culture. But they had no military beyond basic police forces. Human observers remained on each world, not as conquerors, but as insurance. The galaxy called them the Krell Protectorate, though humans insisted the Krell were not being protected from others, but others were being protected from them. On the former Krell Prime, now simply called Krell, a school classroom held an unusual lesson. The teacher was Vexal, the young Krell who had testified at the tribunal. He was older now, more confident, but still carried sadness in his eyes. Today we discuss the burning, he told his students. They were young Krell, born after the Dominion fell. This is difficult history, but you must know it. Your ancestors committed genocide. They murdered 4.3 billion humans without cause or warning. This is not propaganda. This is truth. The students sat quietly. They had grown up in a different world than their parents. A world where history was taught honestly, where military glory was not celebrated, where different species were neighbors instead of targets. Why did humans wait so long? One student asked. Because they were not strong enough immediately, Vexal answered. If they had attacked right after the burning, the old Dominion would have destroyed them completely. So they waited. They prepared. They remembered. For 847 years. That is a very long time to remember, another student said. Yes, Vexal agreed. Humans experience time differently than we do. They carry their history forward as living memory. The burning was not ancient history to them. It was yesterday. They taught their children the names of all 4.3 billion dead. They built memorials that covered continents. They made remembering a sacred duty. He pulled up images of Earth's memorial fields. The students stared at the endless stones, each carved with names. "This is what we did," Vexal said quietly. "This is the wound we gave them, and they never let it heal because they never wanted to forget what happens when strong species destroy the weak." In the back of the classroom, a human observer named Song Min Jae watched. He was one of the thousands of humans stationed across former Krell space. His job was to monitor and advise, but mostly just to be present, a reminder, a guarantee. After class, Vexal approached him. "Was the lesson acceptable?" "More than acceptable," Song said. "You teach the truth. That is all we ask." "Many Krell still hate humans," Vexal said. "They say you destroyed our pride, our power, our place in the galaxy." "They are right," Song replied calmly. "We did destroy those things. We left everything else. Your people are alive, healthy, free to build new futures. We took only the ability to harm others." Vexal clicked thoughtfully. "I wonder sometimes what my life would have been if the Dominion still existed. I would probably be teaching propaganda instead of truth, training students for military service, taking pride in expansion and conquest. Would you prefer that?" "No," Vexal said firmly. "This is better. Harder but better. My students will grow up knowing peace, knowing cooperation. They will not carry the guilt my generation carries. On Earth..." Ambassador Park Ji-woo prepared for his final speech to the Galactic Council. He was 80 years old now, retiring after a lifetime of service. He walked slowly to the speaker's platform, feeling the weight of his years. The council chamber was full. Every species sent representatives to hear humanity's departing statement. 10 years had passed since Operation Reckoning, and the galaxy wanted to know what humans planned next. Some species feared humanity would continue expanding their power. Others hoped humans would become galactic police, enforcing justice everywhere. All wondered what the species that remembered everything would do now that their ancient wound had been answered. "Honored delegates," Ji-woo began, "I stand before you for the last time. I am old and tired. My work is done. But before I leave this chamber, I want to explain what humanity did, why we did it, and what it means for the future." The chamber fell silent. 10 years ago, we dismantled the Krell Dominion. We did this after 847 years of preparation. Some species have asked why we waited so long. Others ask why we acted at all. I will answer both questions. He touched a control, displaying images from the burning. We waited because we were not strong enough to act immediately. If we had struck back when the wound was fresh, the Krell would have exterminated our species completely. So we made a different choice. We became patient. We built strength in secret while appearing weak and cooperative. We waited until we were strong enough to guarantee success. The images changed to show the hidden fleet, the secret bases, the centuries of preparation. We acted because justice does not expire, because genocide cannot be forgiven or forgotten, because we owed 4.3 billion dead the promise that their murders would not go unanswered. We kept that promise. It took 847 years, but we kept it. Ji-woo paused, looking around the chamber at hundreds of species. "Now many of you fear us. You fear our patience. You fear our memory. You fear that we might come for you next. Let me be clear. We will not. We are not conquerors. We are not seeking empire. We wanted only justice for one specific crime. We have achieved that. We are done." Some delegates looked relieved, others skeptical. "However," Ji-woo continued, "let this be a lesson to every species here. Humanity will not forget wounds. We will not ignore crimes. We will not accept that time erases responsibility. If you harm us, we will remember. We will wait as long as necessary, and we will seek justice eventually. His voice grew stronger. But understand what justice means to humanity. It does not mean revenge. It does not mean equivalent suffering. When the Krell killed 4.3 billion of our civilians, we did not kill 4.3 billion of theirs. We removed their leadership, dismantled their military, and then helped their civilians build better lives. This is justice. This is the difference between humans and the Krell Dominion. He let that sink in. The galaxy has lived for centuries believing that time heals all wounds, that species should forgive and move forward, that ancient grievances should be forgotten. Humanity rejects this philosophy. Some wounds should not heal, some crimes should not be forgiven, not because we enjoy holding grudges, but because forgetting enables repetition. Jiwoo pulled up statistics. Since Operation Reckoning, incidents of military aggression between Council species have decreased by 70%. Why? Because every species now knows that actions have consequences, that victims remember, that power does not grant immunity to justice. A delegate from a warrior species stood. You have made the galaxy afraid of taking any military action. No, Jiwoo replied. We have made the galaxy afraid of committing genocide. There is a difference. Defensive wars are still legitimate. Border disputes can still be resolved through force if necessary. But unprovoked slaughter of civilians, threats to exterminate entire species, those actions will be remembered and answered. Is this not better? The delegate sat down without responding. Humanity is not perfect, Jiwoo continued. We have committed our own crimes in our history. We have killed each other in wars, genocides, and purges. We know what evil looks like because we have done evil ourselves. This is why we understand the importance of accountability. This is why we never stopped seeking justice for the burning. He gestured to the Krell section, where new ambassadors sat. These were civilians, elected by their people, not military commanders. Look at the Krell worlds today. Are they worse than they were? No. They are better. Their people are educated honestly. Their governments are accountable to citizens. Their economies are growing. They live in peace with their neighbors. We did not destroy the Krell. We destroyed the Krell Dominion. There is a crucial difference. Captain Lee Sang-mi, now Admiral Lee, sat in the observers section. She had been invited to witness Jiwoo's final speech. She thought about the hidden fleet, now decommissioned. The ships were being converted to civilian use. The crews had returned to normal lives. The long preparation was over. But the memory remained. Every human still knew the 4.3 billion names. Every human world still maintained the memorials. The dead were still honored, still remembered, still spoken to by the living. This would never change. This was who humans were now. The species that remembered everything. In conclusion, Jiwoo said, I want to address the young species in this council, the ones who are new to galactic politics. You watch humanity and wonder if we are heroes or monsters. I say we are neither. We are simply a species that refuses to forget. His voice softened. If you treat us with respect, you will find us loyal friends. We will trade fairly. We will help in times of need. We will cooperate and compromise. But if you harm us, if you commit crimes against us, know that we will remember. For centuries if necessary. For millennia if required. We will wait until we are strong enough, and then we will come for justice. He looked directly at the youngest delegates, beings from species who had just achieved space travel. Learn from the Krell. Learn from humanity. Learn that the universe has a long memory. Your actions today will echo across centuries. Choose them wisely. Jiwoo bowed slightly and left the platform. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species applauded, others argued. All understood that the galaxy had changed. Humanity had proven that patience was not weakness. That memory was power. That justice could wait centuries, but would eventually arrive. After the session, Jiwoo walked through the council gardens. He was joined by Admiral Lee and Vex'ale, who had traveled to witness this moment. "Do you think they understood?" Vex'ale asked. "Some did," Jiwoo replied. "Others will learn eventually. The important thing is that the message is clear. Humanity remembers." "Are you satisfied?" Lee asked. "You spent your entire life working toward Operation Reckoning. Now it is over. Was it worth it?" Jiwoo considered carefully. He thought about his ancestor, Park Min-seo, the 9-year-old girl who died protecting younger children. He thought about the 4.3 billion names on memorial stones. He thought about 847 years of waiting. "Yes," he said finally. "Justice is always worth waiting for." They walked in silence for a while. 3 beings from different species who had all been shaped by the burning. Jiwoo, who had prosecuted it, Lee, who had executed the military response, and Vex'ale, who had taught the truth to the next generation. "What happens now?" Vex'ale asked. "Humanity has achieved its justice. The Krell are defeated. What do humans do next?" Jiwoo smiled. "We live, we build, we create art and science and culture, we explore new worlds and make new friends. We do all the things 4.3 billion people never got to do. We live for them. And if someone harms humanity again, then we will remember again. We will wait again. We will seek justice again." Jiwoo's smile faded. "But we hope no one will be foolish enough to test this. The galaxy has seen what happens when you wound humanity. We hope the lesson is learned." On Earth, at the memorial fields, people gathered as they did every year on the anniversary of the burning. But this year was different. This year, they came not just to mourn, but to celebrate. Justice had been achieved. The wait was over. The dead had their answer. An elderly woman stood before a stone marked Kim Tae-hyun, age 42, father, teacher. She was Kim Soo-jin, now 93 years old. She had attended the tribunal. She had watched the Krell High Command sentenced. She had lived to see justice. "We kept our promise," she whispered to the stone. "It took 847 years, but we kept it. You can rest now. We will never forget you, but you can rest." Around her, millions of others spoke to their chosen names, telling the dead that justice had arrived, that humanity had remembered, that the long wait was over. But the stones remained, the names remained, the memorials remained, because humanity would always remember, not out of hatred, but out of love, love for those who died, love for the future they never saw, love strong enough to carry 4.3 billion names across centuries. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy, the proof that victims need not stay victims, that patience can be strength, that justice can wait as long as necessary. The galaxy had learned that mankind never forgets a wound, and that when humanity finally strikes back, it is not with blind revenge, but with justice powerful enough to crush empires while still protecting the innocent. This was the new balance. This was the lesson. This was humanity's place in the galaxy, the species that remembered everything and ensured that genocide would always, eventually, have consequences. The dead could rest now. The living would carry their names forward, and the galaxy would never again assume that time erased accountability. Humanity had spoken, the universe had listened, and the long memory of mankind became the galaxy's guarantee that the burning would never happen again to any species, anywhere. Justice had arrived, 847 years late, but it had arrived, and that made all the difference.